Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about something that can drive a lot of organizations crazy, the old-school top-down command chain. We're going to explore a really powerful model that flips that script and builds genuine team ownership. This is a huge deal for any complex place, whether you're talking about a large law firm or a fast-paced tech startup.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at why those traditional command chains just don't work anymore. Then we'll introduce this idea of a self-directed team. After that, we'll get into the 3 pillars that hold the whole thing up, see how it's all managed by a central monitoring unit, and finally, explore the cultural payoff, which is really what it's all about. Let's dive in.
All right, first things first, escaping the command chain. Let's talk about that invisible friction that slows so many companies down, even when they're packed with incredibly smart and talented people.
Sound familiar? You know, when a great idea just gets stuck, or a simple decision has to be run up the chain of command, and with every single step, it loses a little bit of steam, a little bit of clarity. That's the exact bottleneck we're talking about. It's exhausting.
So you've got the classic problem. Information has to crawl its way up to the top, work gets duplicated at every level, and new ideas, well, they often get crushed before they even have a chance. It's just not efficient. The alternative, though, is to empower teams to act directly. Let information flow to where it's actually needed, and you suddenly see innovation pop up everywhere.
So what is this alternative? It's what we call the self-directed team model. And it's a huge shift, not just in the org chart, but in how work, information, and most importantly, trust actually flow through an organization. Okay, so instead of a pyramid, I want you to picture a network of hubs. Each of these hubs, these responsibility centers, is autonomous. They manage their own work, they track their own performance, and they report their results, but not up some rigid ladder. Instead, they report to a central monitoring unit. The whole model is built on trust and giving ownership to people on the front lines.
And the payoff here? It's huge. When you empower your teams like this, senior managers are suddenly freed up from putting out fires all day. They can actually focus on big-picture strategy and building client relationships. And at the same time, you're lighting this fire of proactive, entrepreneurial problem-solving across the entire company.
So how does this all work in the real world? Well, the whole system really rests on 3 core pillars. If you get these right, the whole model just sings. Everything, and I mean everything, starts with this first pillar, being responsible. Because you can't have real autonomy if people aren't crystal clear on what they're actually responsible for. And listen, we are not talking about some vague, dusty old job description here. This means creating super detailed, process-led task maps and what are called service-level agreements, or SLAs. These docs spell out exactly who does what, when they do it, and how. It completely changes the culture from just showing up to proactively owning your piece of the puzzle.
But look, having clear responsibilities is only half the battle, right? If you tell someone they're responsible for something, but don't give them the tools to do it, you're just setting them up for failure. And that brings us to pillar number 2.
The second pillar is all about being empowered. This means you've got to give your teams the training they need, the right tools for the job, and this is the big one, the authority to actually make decisions. It's all about equipping people to actually deliver on the promises they've made.
And the final pillar, accountability, is what closes the loop. This is where accountability stops being this scary top-down thing that happens to you and becomes a proactive, team-driven process that's built on trust and actual data.
So here's the crucial point. Accountability becomes about self-directed reporting. Teams aren't sitting around waiting for a manager to ask for an update. Nope. They are proactively tracking and sharing their own performance against clear, agreed-upon goals. This right here is the engine that drives a real sense of ownership.
Okay, so a very fair question at this point is, with all this freedom and autonomy, how do you keep it from turning into total chaos? And that is where the central control system comes in. It's called the monitoring unit.
This analogy is just perfect. The monitoring unit isn't some micromanager looking over everyone's shoulder. Think of it more like a traffic cop at a really busy intersection. Their job isn't to drive every car, it's to see the entire flow of traffic and make sure everything runs smoothly and efficiently. You can kind of picture it like this. The monitoring unit is like a central data hub. It uses these dashboards to keep an eye on key metrics, things like speed, volume, and quality. It analyzes all that data and then sends out very specific action reports, but only to the teams that need to see them. This is all about precision guidance, not blanket oversight.
So when you bring all these pieces together, the autonomous teams, those 3 pillars we talked about, and the monitoring unit, what you get is something way bigger than just a new org chart. You get a fundamental shift in your entire culture, one that's focused on finding what's right.
This diagram really pulls it all together. You can literally trace the flow from the company's biggest goals and strategy right down to clearly defined jobs and SLAs. That then feeds into the team's own performance management, which reports back to the monitoring unit. What you end up with is this amazing, continuous feedback loop connecting people, performance, and purpose.
And this right here is the ultimate win. You move away from a culture of who is right, which is all about ego and hierarchy, to a culture of what is right, where decisions are driven by data and what's best for the mission. It's a shift toward a kind of collective, objective success.
So that leaves us with the big question. Are you ready to make that shift? What this model really shows is that if you build a framework based on responsibility, empowerment, and accountability, you can unlock incredible new levels of innovation, efficiency, and honestly, just job satisfaction. It is a really powerful and transformative idea.